Hello out there. Welcome to my channel. This is an educational channel, and we usually take time out to look at great theories of everything. Cosmology's all-encompassing theories, grand unified theories, and especially if they are obscure and you've never heard of them before. And we did a lot of videos on the ancient Egyptian tree of life, especially as conceived of by Ra-Nefer-Amen in his Meduna books and others, and also many videos on Dewey B. Larson's reciprocal system of theory. Now we moved on to go over this book here from Daniel Ingram called Mastering the Core Teachings of the Buddha. This book is mainly on Buddhist meditation, insight training especially, but also just brings a lot of experience to the table. Mr. Ingram has spent a lot of time in monasteries in the Far East and has brought home a lot of treasures, not only from his experience on the cushion meditating, but also from the panoply of teachers that he has been in contact with, many of whom carry ancient traditions of really Buddhism is really a science. It's a science of how your mind works, and these people have been documenting their science for thousands of years, and at least according to Ingram, and I can vouch for it to a small extent, these are reproducible experiences. So this is a laboratory, meditation laboratory that you're going into. And we're about to start chapter 12 of this book, which is called Daily Life and Retreats. Last chapter was on teachers. So now we're talking about meditation in your daily life and then also going on retreat. Related to sits are the worlds of retreats and monasticism, and how these contrast with daily life or the lives of householders, who, for those not steeped in Buddhism, are neither monks nor nuns. Each life path has its own challenges, but many of them overlap, and the differences may be more a question of degree. Now, it is true that the battle is not always to the strong, nor the race to the swift. But that's the way to bet. In other words, those who, 1, do lots of practice in daily life, 2, go on more and longer retreats, 3, are more consistently able to concentrate and investigate quickly and precisely, 4, pay attention more often during their daily activities, and 5, have their morality trip more together, are, on average, more likely to make quicker progress. When on retreat, people can practice nearly all day in settings that are designed to facilitate clear, precise inquiry and depths of meditation. Why so few people take advantage of these incredibly optimal circumstances when they go on retreat is beyond me, and I will spend some time discussing that later. The point is that doing proper practice on retreat is highly conducive to quicker and deeper development. If you go on retreat, make good use of that precious time. There is a significant difference between the experiences of people who do retreats halfway and people who wholeheartedly follow the instructions all day long. In my experience, there is no comparison between retreats I have done when I really powered the investigation from the time I awoke until I went to sleep at night, affecting quick and profound progress, and when I instead took breaks, checking out of the technique to process my issues or cogitate over meditation theory, slowing my progress. While many people think that retreats are for more advanced practitioners, I think that a few retreats done very early in our practice can really jumpstart things, allowing us to make much better use of meditation time off retreat. I began Buddhist meditation practice with a 9-day intensive retreat, and I'm glad I did, as it taught me a lot and saved me much wasted effort. I often think of the momentum that retreats generate in terms of rolling a boulder up and over a hill. If you get a long running start pushing hard the whole way, you're more likely to be able to get the boulder rolling fast enough so that it rolls over the hill in one straight shot. If you push intermittently or half-heartedly, the boulder is likely to roll back when you get to the steep part of the hill. But you have worn the hill down a bit, and you may also be a bit stronger for the exercise. Thus, it is possible to wear down the hill given enough time, but it is much faster to simply power over it the first time and move on to the next hill. I know of no obvious benefits from slow practice that fails to gain some footholds in the territory of concentration or insight. Those who take the wear down the hill approach may eventually lose faith and interest, having done much work to little effect. Those who really apply themselves and cross a few hills early on through focused and consistent effort, such as retreats or solid daily life practice, will have more of a sense of accomplishment and empowerment, and may even put in less total time and effort than those who tried to wear down the hill. This irony should not be lost on those who want to be smart about developing their meditative skills. For example, let's say that you could allocate 365 hours out of 1 year to formal meditation practice. Given a choice, I would be more inclined to take half the time, 182.5 hours, and do a 10-day retreat practicing hard and consistently 18 hours a day with minimal breaks at the beginning of the year, and then spend half an hour meditating each of the other days of that year. I would be much more likely to cross into some interesting territory early on and overcome some of the initial hurdles that if I spent 1 hour each day of that year practicing well. The amount of time and effort is the same, but the effect is likely to be quite different. Another thing about momentum is that it builds slowly and fades rapidly. What does this mean? Imagine that you are running 7 miles per hour on an extremely long moving walkway, like one you would find in a gigantic airport. But the long moving walkway was moving in the opposite direction at 6 miles per hour. Thus, for each hour you run, you gain a mile. However, if you stopped running for 10 minutes, you would end up a mile behind. Meditating on retreats is just like that. If you want to build momentum, don't take pauses in the practice, as they will cost you much more than you think they could. Stopping for 10 minutes to slack off after an hour sit might cost you all the momentum you gained during that sit and perhaps more. Be mindful every friggin' second, from the moment you get up to the moment you go to sleep, and in all transition periods, getting up off the cushion, brushing your teeth, walking to the meditation hall, eating, bathing, peeing, dressing, etc. Those who make use of every moment and every context will make vastly more progress on average than those who don't, even if those other people are still doing the same walking and sitting sessions. When applying this sort of advice, be sure to keep the 7 factors in mind and balance them skillfully. Okay, I guess that is the end of that chapter. This next chapter, chapter 13, is called A Few Odds and Ends About Retreats. First, retreats tend to have a semi-predictable rhythm to them. Realizing this allows us, if we have the time and resources, to choose how long a retreat we want to attend to meet our meditative goals. Even if we are practicing well, the first few days of a retreat tend to be mostly about adjusting to the schedule, the place, the posture, the routine, the technique, the food, the people, local customs, etc. Similarly, the last 1 to 3 days of a retreat tend to bring up thoughts of what we are going to do once we leave the retreat. Thus, to give yourself some solid practice time in the middle, I recommend longer than 5-day retreats when possible. It is not that you can't derive benefit from shorter retreats, but that there is something about those middle days between the first few and the last few that tends to make strong concentration and good practice easier to attain. I realize that not everyone reading this will be up for even able to go easily on longer retreats, but what is a few weeks of your life for the potentially amazing benefits of learning to concentrate well? Are you capable of doing a month of practice? That would be a solid block of time to learn some great skills. 6 weeks would be even better. Oddly enough, out past about 2 to 3 months, yield may go down for some practitioners, since feeling like they have time, they may not put in the intensity of effort early on, and so actually waste a lot of time and make slower progress than someone who did a shorter retreat well. Second, every retreat center and tradition has its shadow aspects and downsides. Combine those with our shadow stuff, and we can easily be triggered. This is inevitable, but identifying shadow aspects in ourselves will help prevent us from being triggered by shadow aspects we may easily project onto the center or tradition. Realizing that there are ways to keep those from slowing down our investigation is helpful. One center where I have spent a bit of time is prone to attracting very serious, uptight, scowling people who trudge around in their walking practice as if the slightest sound or glance from anyone might set them off like a bomb. I have been to another center where at times I have been the only meditator in the meditation hall, requiring me to have more self-motivation and discipline. Another monastic center I have been to has the whole male hierarchy thing going on, which can trigger all sorts of reactions from both male and female retreatants. Then there are the neurotic issues around food, a huge topic of which vegetarian versus non-vegetarian is just the tip of the iceberg. As an aside, I personally don't think that eating meat is likely to interfere with most people's meditation abilities, but it certainly is not great for the animals or the environment, or likely to strengthen our efforts at advocating for and living by a non-harming ethic. I personally have waxed both vegetarian and omnivorous along the way, and can't predict what I will eat in the future with certainty. Take your best guess about what balances your health with the health of the planet. There are also almost always issues around bathrooms, quarters, showers, hot water, washing clothes and dishes, chores, heating and cooling. One place I went to has cantankerous wood stoves in some buildings for heat. Another, in a tropical setting, has open windows that let the mosquitoes swarm in. Clothing, for example, some centers have people wear white. Others don't tolerate skimpy or revealing outfits. Some don't care. Fragrances, chemical sensitivities, incense, morning wake-up bells, too quiet, too loud, someone forgets to ring it at all. Schedules, roommates, particularly those who snore, have body odor, are noisy, talkative, or messy, etc. Strictness of silence, eye contact or lack thereof, etiquette around teachers, whether to ask challenging questions or not, limits on the time we have access to them, their personalities and quirks, whether they speak the language we speak, etiquette of entering rooms with Buddhist teachers or images, for example, whether to bow 3 times or not, the presence of Buddhist images or not, and which images, and issues around the orthodoxy of ritual, dogma, posture, hand position, eating, chanting, vows, and so on. Speaking of bathrooms, proper etiquette regarding bathrooms, common spaces, and shared resources makes retreats much easier for all involved. Remember, small slights can get magnified by high concentration into huge issues in the minds of retreatants. So be respectful and tread lightly, or in simple language, clean up after yourself. Replace the toilet paper roll when you know darn well it's time, etc. A little consideration goes a long way in creating harmony and good morale, and is a beautiful expression of applied morality. The list above omitted the nearly perennial issues of corruption, miscommunications, personality cults, crushes, affairs, romances, vendettas, scandals, drug use, power plays, politics, agendas, financial concerns, cliques, physical and mental illness, and all the other challenges that can show up anywhere there are people. In short, whatever you imagine that you or other people might have issues around, these are bound to occur sooner or later, or even to be exponentially magnified if you spend enough time in spiritual circles or retreat centers. While solo practice is an option, it doesn't get you away from these and has its own set of downsides, such as making you think you have fewer issues than you do. There is nothing like interacting with others to show us our blind spots in relation to our issues, whether we are great meditators or not. Most people practice more diligently in group settings, as is human nature, like going to a gym versus working out at home. The crucial point is to realize that great practice can occur in conditions far from perfect, particularly if we realize that all the sensations that make up these inputs and our reactions to them are all worthy of investigation, and thus as much a source of ultimate and often relative wisdom as any other sensations. I have rarely had what I consider perfect practice conditions, but I have done well, and you can too. That said, some centers, retreats, and teachers are better than others, and it is worth exploring and asking around. The quality of retreat centers can also vary with time, since institutions, like people, can also mature, morph, and decay. So this can add further confusion. All these aspects can be particularly distracting and distressing for a first-time retreatant who may have naive hopes, however unacknowledged, of walking into the Garden of Eden, sitting with the Buddha, and hanging out with the most evolved individuals on the planet. When off retreat, progress is still possible, particularly if we have used retreats to get past some of the initial hurdles and gotten a taste of what is possible. Do not underestimate the value of careful and honest awareness of where we are going through, what we are going through during our life off the cushion. I know a few very solid practitioners who did it all in daily life without retreats, but with very strict technique for every second they could spare, along with good time management skills and innate talent. On the other hand, if you want to significantly increase your chances of tasting the fruits of the path, do your best to make time for retreats in a way that honors your spiritual goals as well as your other commitments. One of the reasons for monasticism is that your commitments become your practice. But there are plenty of people who have figured out how to live in the world and use retreats and strong daily practice to achieve the same basic results. In fact, at this unusual time in history, there are plenty of places to sit for very little money where you can get great support for practice without having to deal with the additional demands and commitments involved in monasticism. Some of my favorite places to go on retreat are the Insight Meditation Society in Barre, Massachusetts, the Bhavana Society in Highview, West Virginia, the Malaysian Buddhist Meditation Center in Penang, Malaysia. Teachers vary there, check before going. And Gaia House near what is that word? Totnes, England. Worth mentioning are the Mahasi centers in Burma, Myanmar, such as Panditarama in Yangon, formerly known as Rangoon, and particularly Panditarama Lumbini in Nepal, to which I haven't been but know many people who have. All these are easy to find on the internet for those who are really into Mahasi style practice, as I am. The 3-month retreat at IMS, the one in Massachusetts, or a few weeks to months at a place such as Panditarama, Lumbini, or some of the Thai or other Asian Mahasi centers are highly recommended. There is also Tathagata in San Jose, California. I often marvel at the things we spend our time and money doing. As Kenneth once said, if you had to flip burgers for 13 years to save the money to do the 3-month at IMS, it would be well worth it. I prefer more pragmatic centers due to various cultural factors, such as their tendency to be less comfortable talking openly about states and stages. But IMS has helped a lot of people, including me. Burma is a great place to go for the real deal, but there are some issues that need to be carefully weighed involving the government, the oily food, the cultural barriers, the water, the heat, the parasites, and the malaria-carrying mosquitoes. I personally haven't been to Burma as of writing this, though. I have been to plenty of places with similar issues, and if you can avoid these, you may just live a bit longer. I should also mention that it is common these days for logistical and financial reasons for people to go on retreats at centers and with teachers that teach a technique different from the one they decide to practice when they go there. To use a common example, people go on easily accessible and financially doable 10-day retreats in the Goenka tradition, which teaches meditation on the breath for 3 days, followed by a body scanning meditation technique, yet do some other practice such as noting. Or people go to an IMS or Spirit Rock retreat with a laid-back teacher advocating a more relaxed version of practice than we might get out of a book such as this one. Instead of following along with that center and teacher's approach and instructions, might have a hardcore attitude involving rapid, blazing investigation. There are ethical and practical problems with using available and more affordable retreat facilities to do your own practice. For example, if you are doing some technique other than what the teacher is teaching, that teacher might not be able to identify the territory you are likely to get into and the potential traps and side effects of the practice you are doing. So you reduce the chances that you will get good guidance if you run to anything unusual, complex, difficult, or destabilizing. For example, the laid-back teacher with a gentler style may not be expecting or even know how to handle the potential energy imbalances and irritability that more rapid and hyper-investigative styles can produce. If you are not telling your teacher what you are doing and instead lie about your following their instructions, not only is this deceptive and in contradiction to the first training of morality required to embark on a safe journey to awakening, but it can be very confusing to everyone involved. You may not be able to determine if the teacher's advice is based on whatever lie you told them, or on something more about your mood, way of being, or another aspect you present. Said another way, they may pick up on something off or imbalanced in you that has nothing to do with whatever lie you told them, but you can't hear, much less apply their perhaps skillful and beneficial advice. Specifically, if you are frying yourself and they can see that and are trying to get you to chill out, they just might know what they're talking about. Okay, I think we're going to stop right there, and we will move on in this chapter on a few tidbits on meditation retreats. And thanks for tuning in today. Have a great day.